how do you see things evolving over the next few years in the blockchain space?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think AI is the buzzword right now, without a doubt. That's kind of all these companies have pivoted to raising on AI strategies. A lot of them are just kind of like cheap GPT wrappers, and those are all going to go out of business as like OpenAI builds those same solutions themselves. There are some real optimizations happening where people are making very specific LLMs dependent on like very specific business models that give better outputs than the large language models that are general. So I think that will be interesting. And the reason I bring that one up is I think in crypto, we're starting to see some people try and make large language models specific to crypto. So we'll see if anything interesting happens there. We did a tiny bit here when we added that chat bot as the riddle as a game for people to play around with. And there are some XNFTs that are actually like chat GPT wrappers. And super early on when we were still in like the closed beta and we didn't have anyone in, we had a waiting room where we did like stable diffusion generated images and people had to guess the prompt. So I think there's like fun implementations. We haven't thought of it at all as a core business model, but I think it's a really interesting technology. I think crypto generally is being ratified by the state of the world right now. I think it's just becoming clearer and clearer and clearer that people need an option through which they can find self-sovereignty and sort of like permissionless forms of financial interactions between each other. And I think that's just like becoming clearer than it ever has before. So I think from that perspective, crypto is in a really, really good place. I think Bitcoin has found a narrative again for the first time since the last halving, and Paul Tudor Jones basically made it kosher for large investment funds to put money into Bitcoin. That was the last narrative Bitcoin had. And I think it's finding a new narrative now with the banking crisis in the United States. And obviously, look, I'm a U.S. person. I live in the U.S., so my views will be very U.S. centric. But Bitcoin has had definitely had a narrative this whole time in like Nigeria and Argentina and these places where their fiat currencies are going to shit. But from the U.S. perspective, I think it's a little bit sad because US people sometimes have a hard time wrapping their heads around how valuable all of this is because we live in like such a functional society. But now when these pieces start to fall, I think it becomes much clearer for everyone, even in the US, that these technologies are super important for us to live as self-sovereign humans going forward.